Hello, podcast listeners. Today we have a special episode starting our third season, an interview with Cleve Doyen, co-owner and managing partner of Brothers Transport. Cleve is a graduate of South Prairie High School. He is a veteran of the United States Marines and is also an entrepreneur and businessman who has put his expertise into logistics. Cleve and I spoke over the phone about the challenges and ins and outs of being in the trucking industry, as well as how we can all think more like an entrepreneur in tough times like we're in right now. He also gave me some great reminders of how we, as the general public, can better share the road with our truck drivers, who are at the heart of making sure that everyone has what they're needing right now. I really enjoyed talking with Cleve, and I hope you enjoy listening. Hello, podcast listeners. Today we have Mr. Cleve Doyen with us. Episode, and he is an alumni from the South Prairie High School, 96, right, Cleve?
That's right.
95? Okay. So, Cleve, why don't you tell us what is it that you do, and what is the name of your company, and give us just a little bit of introduction of who you are.
Sure. So, the name of my company is Brothers Transport. It's actually two best friends that got together and decided we were going to start driving for a living.
Great.
I had an MBA, PMP certification, and just got tired of the office life. Spent too long in the Marines and just said, you know what, screw everything else. I'm done. And got in the truck, and I've got hours of solitude now. It's peaceful. It's nice, but we haul flatbed freight on hot shots. So we're running two dualies with 40-foot flatbed trailers.
Wow. And when did you start all this?
July of last year. I was actually disabled, ran out of FMLA, and the company I was working for found a loophole and let me go.
Wow. So you guys have only been doing this not even a year yet?
Not even a year. And we're doing about $30,000 a month.
Holy moly. So how is this like affecting you guys? Like, how is the current climate right now affecting you guys?
You know, I keep hearing horror stories about, the semi flatbed drivers, their revenues being cut in half, sometimes more. I know the van haulers, the guys with the big long 53-foot enclosed trailers, they're doing pretty well right now because, they can't on the shelf. Typically, at this time of the year, the guys in the wintertime who were hauling flatbed freight are going back over and doing commodities and produce, and it kind of opens the market up for us, and we'll do $6-7 grand a month per truck. But We're not seeing that right now. We haul the scraps, if you will, from the semi flatbed drivers, because we can't do more than 16,000 pounds, and those guys are running 40,000 pound loads. But now they're taking 2 and 3 of our loads at one time and kind of leaving us out here. I mean, that's what I've been hearing. I haven't been experiencing it, to be honest with you.
Wow.
But that's the way it is during the winter time for sure.
So where are you at right now physically?
Physically, I am, maybe about 20 minutes west of Oklahoma City. To tell you the truth, I don't even know the name of the town. I just kind of, if they tell me there's a load here and there's money for it, well, put in my GPS and go.
So where are you going? Like, you're waiting to take another load where?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be grabbing a load of axles that are going down to Bryan College Station and Houston, Texas.
Wow. What an interesting job you have.
Yeah, I mean, every load's different. I mean, if you saw the amount of equipment I try to stuff in this, figuratively speaking, this little truck, I mean, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
So is it just the two of you, or do y'all have employees as well?
No, right now it's just the two of us and a dispatching company and a factoring company. So there's three different companies involved. The dispatching company, a lot of the guys will be like, look, why are you going to give 10% to somebody? Well, you know what? If that 10% is returning 25%, well, shoot, that's money well spent in my book. And
Absolutely.
then, she keeps our wheels spinning. She's very effective at it. We had another dispatcher at one point that, I mean, we were doing 6 and 7 grand a month, like I was saying earlier, but it just was not efficient running.
Mm,
Um, so we weren't profiting. We were living paycheck to paycheck on 30
yeah.
grand a month. Something's wrong if you're making 30 grand or you're bringing in 30 grand a month and you're not making money.
Wow.
So we decided to let him go. The original plan was to start doing our own, uh, finding our own loads, but I decided to give this other company a shot. And well, what do you know? I mean, we're running. We've got loads before we drop, so
Wow.
it's running really really well right now, and hopefully things don't go on long enough that we really start feeling it. I'm
Yeah.
actually sitting here about to pick up this load. Like I was telling you earlier in a conversation, I've been here since 8:40 this morning. Had actually dropped off the load before at 6:15 in the morning, trying to get home to my kid who leaves tomorrow. And come to find out, these guys are shutting down at 3 o'clock and laying off. So they're not in
Oh,
any hurry to load my trailer.
wow.
And I don't
So
blame them.
I'm curious. I have a couple of questions to ask you because I don't know that a lot of people really understand how the trucking industry works and just I mean because you're talking about very specific types of freight that you carry and I don't think that we really take into account the different types of loads that you can carry as a truck. I worked in the logistical department of a company that we did we carried the ovens to Subway stores. So I have a little bit of insight into that industry and kind of what goes into what is the requirement, how much of a the poundage that you can carry, where you can drive and all that. But like maybe when it comes to all this stuff going on right now, what are some of the challenges that even people like the truckers have to get the supplies where they need to go? Are they stopping everybody a lot more often right now? Like, are you seeing that? Or, maybe.
No, it's actually a little eerie because as a hotshot, any mom and pop, any Joe Blow down who has a truck and a trailer can hop in there, get himself an LLC and pay some fees, and bam, he's a hotshot, right? So it's very easy to gain competitors. So you have to really you got to work harder than the next guy, and you've got to be really efficient at it. Now, I mean, if you don't have a CDL, you can run it here. There was a show at one point called Hot Shotters, I believe is what it was called. And that really brought a lot of people into this industry, only to find out that it's not what it seems and it's a lot harder than it looks. And the money isn't as great as they made it look on the television show. And this is rough freaking work. I mean,
Mm,
I know this is kind of gross, but I haven't had a shower since I left the house on Monday. You can't get in anywhere.
really?
Oh man. Usually, and this is kind of my thing, but I've got a membership at Planet Fitness,
Uh-huh.
and I work out in the morning. I try to stay in shape, and it gives me focus throughout the day. But another benefit of it is anytime you go and fill up on fuel at a truck stop, anything over $50, you get a shower.
Yeah.
If you don't fill up there, then you have to pay for that shower, and that shower is $15. The only
Wow.
time I have time to take a shower is after 7 o'clock in the evening. DOT says I can only drive for 11 hours. I can only work for 14. So that 14 hours includes the time that it takes to load these trucks. And you may sit like I've been sitting here. My clock is running right now,
Oh, wow.
and it's pulling off of my 14 hours. So I hopped in the back of the truck. DOT says I have to take a break every 8 hours. You can take a break 30 minutes after you start for 30 minutes. And within the next 8 hours, you have to take another break. And it's all time. So I don't stop at all from 6 in the morning until 7 in the evening at least. And then
Wow.
DOT says you have to take a 10-hour break. So
Wow.
the problem with that is if you get behind in the beginning, you're behind the whole freaking week because you have
Right.
to take that 10 hours off. So anyway, you get into a truck stop after 7 o'clock. We're the smaller trucks. The big trucks don't look for us. And the worst thing that could happen and could possibly end the profitability of that truck is if we get hit by a bigger truck. We're done. And so there are so many factors. If I get one insurance claim, my insurance per month, well, it ranges. So since we're in our first year, we're paying $1,400 a month in insurance. If I get one claim, that's damaged freight, that's if somebody slams on their brakes and I don't have enough time to stop, that's if I sideswipe a pole, my insurance doubles automatically and I'm done. So there's so many risks out here. Can't eat. There's you can't go through the drive-through.
Right.
Sit down, aren't open. And so really, the meals that I get are being able to pull into a Walmart and go inside. And then you have to deal with the risks of being infected.
So are all truckers responsible for their own insurance, or do some companies pay for that? How does that work?
So there are three different levels. Well, three different categories. There are drivers of companies. They're actual employees of that company. Then there are leased on owner operators. So that's a guy or girl who owns their own truck and trailer, and they go work for another company. That truck is then paid for by that company. And then there are independent owner operators, which is what I am. An independent owner operator has no loyalties to anyone unless there's in there.
So do you have to be like, in order to do what you do you have to specify what kind of freight you're going to carry at all times, or can you just switch between different types depending on who needs you to do things?
Well, when you register in the beginning, you tell FMCSA, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Association, I'm pretty sure is what it stands for, but it's basically the governing body. So you've got the DOT who runs the roads, and then you have the FMCSA, which basically runs transportation. And they essentially, when you sign up, you tell them what kind of freight that you're going to take. But then you also have to tell your insurance company what kind of freight you're going to take. So let's say I decide one day I'm going to take a car and I haven't registered a car and I get into an accident and that vehicle that I'm towing is totaled. Well, I've got to pay for it out of my own pocket.
Oh my gosh. So it's not like in a situation like this where we're in some type of a crisis where we need more people because we're, all the stores are running low on things and people are having a hard time getting places. It's not like you can just find truckers to just start taking food all of a sudden. That is not something that really could happen that quickly. Is that what I'm understanding?
Now it depends. So there's all called power only. Power only means you've got a semi truck, the truck itself, the tractor, and you're able to disconnect from a trailer and go hook up to somebody else's trailer and take it. Now those guys can unhook from their trailers anytime that they want to, and they'll go. I can't. I'm in a 1-ton dually, so I can't haul a 53-foot van.
Gotcha. I see. Wow, it's so complicated. And I don't think that we put a lot of thought into, because obviously, if you're not in an industry, you don't really understand all the ins and outs of like how it works, but you don't put a whole lot of thought into that. And that's one of those things where you don't think about how long you can drive at a time, or, yeah, just like when you stop and what you can do when you're there. You don't think about, now we've closed down all the restaurants, and you, even if you wanted to, you couldn't go through a drive through even to get food. That's a whole nother complicated issue. So there's just a whole lot of this that goes into when something like this happens, especially that people just don't think about. We just assume, okay, well, we'll just we'll just go get this all done, and we'll get all the stores stocked up, and it'll be fine. And, or people will get everything that they need, but they're not thinking about all the different, details and the ins and outs of how all this works. So, like, when you cross over from state to state, do y'all have the same, is it the same rules regardless, or are y'all governed by the state that you're in as far as?
You're governed by the state that you're in. As a
Wow.
matter of fact, you can. I get pulled into weigh stations all the time for random document checks, or they call them level 1 inspections, where they actually go through all of your logs. They go through your truck trailer from front to back. They look for violations to make sure that you're maintaining your equipment. And I've asked questions before because, I mean, shoot, they're people too. Why not? They're the experts. So I asked the question one time. So I actually had at the time 3 numbers on my truck because there were 3 governing bodies over my truck. There was Tex Dot, there was FMCSA, which I had an MC number, and then I had a US DOT. And so each one of those numbers are on my truck because I have to register, and they govern different parts of how I can drive and how I can operate. So anyway, I walked in one day because I had actually been at a Walmart. I was sleeping in the parking lot, and I woke up the next morning, started tearing everything down to get ready to drive, doing a pre-check and all. And this guy in an unmarked dually with a trailer similar to mine comes walking over, and he goes, "Hey man, how do you find your loads?" And I said, "Load boards." He goes, "Well, I've been trying to get loads on load boards, and they won't allow me to get them because I don't have an MC number." And I started thinking, my MC number is right on the side of my truck. So what prevents this guy from taking that MC number and going and starting doing loads? And then I had read that we didn't have to have MC numbers on our trucks anymore. So I asked at a Oklahoma weigh station, one of the officers, and I said, "Do I have to have an MC number on my truck? Because I read that I don't." And that officer asked her supervisor, and the supervisor comes back and he goes, "It depends on the state." I'm like, "Well, how do I keep from getting a ticket in every state?"
Oh my gosh. So
Man,
that could be so confusing. I mean, as a truck driver, it seems like it's just assumed. It's like the norm that you're going to cross state lines on a regular basis. So for
right.
y'all to have to keep up with all that, that's really complicated.
It's definitely, before you take a load as a flatbed driver, because every load that you take is different from the last. So, well, this morning I dropped off a load of these 1-inch balls to a fertilizer plant, and I'm about to pick up axles. I'm taking a tractor to Boise, Idaho on Monday. Pipe. I hauled this rickety pallet of fire hoses one time. I mean, how do you strap down rubber hoses?
Oh my gosh.
I had a load one time that was a cardboard box that was half full, and they said, "Don't crush the box." Well, how am I supposed to strap that down?
Oh my gosh.
So, it comes down to we're required to keep a green book in our trucks that is the FMCSA guidebook, and there's a certain section in there that says this is how we require you to strap your load or to secure your load. The only issue really stems down to, depending on what state you go into, if you're hauling an over-dimensional load, over height, over width, Illinois requires you to have flashing lights on the truck. Texas doesn't. Texas requires an 8x8 red flag at the outer portions of the load. And then Oklahoma requires a pilot car and 12x12 red flags. So it's literally a planning process before you start driving.
So what kind of education do you have to go through all this whenever you go get your license? Is this all classes you have to take and things like, how do you get trained to know all of these different ins and outs of all the rules?
Research.
So you're not even
That's
required to be like, that's not even something that they make you take?
Now, the funny thing about it is you can be a non-CDL driver and haul up to 26,000 pounds. Now, there's another requirement called combination, but the gross vehicle weight rating of your trailer and your truck cannot exceed 26,000 pounds. At 26,001 pounds, now you are a full-fledged Class A CDL with combination. So I could literally get out of this truck and walk over to a semi and start driving it. I have a license for that. I actually had to parallel park the damn truck. So, so I am very capable of driving a semi truck. Now it's a totally different feel, and no, I wouldn't feel comfortable about it at first, but I know that FMCSA has been trying really hard to put into effect training guidelines or training requirements for new drivers. However, I got a CDL Class A, took the test and everything, and the next day I got in my truck and I started earning money. And the only way I learned was I opened up that green book, I Googled, I called, but I was extremely nitpicky about all of it and have not had one single violation. And as a matter of fact, just to give you a perspective on that, you have a score of, I believe it's 1 to 100. And every time you get a violation, it counts off of that score. So an officer can pull you over on the side of the road and give you a citation for whatever. It could be you didn't put enough straps on your load. Actually, my business partner, he had a piece of styrofoam fly off of his truck and hit the windshield of a state trooper in Texas.
Oh, no.
After we had literally just had the conversation of, you need to put a tarp on that. I know they didn't pay for it, but you need to put a tarp on it because they wrapped it in plastic and put styrofoam on it. The wind is going to tear that load apart. Not even 5 minutes later, a piece of styrofoam flies off and hits that windshield.
Oh my gosh.
And he said that officer gave him a butt whipping. And we just had what's called a safer audit. It's where the FMCSA says, okay, are you being safe? And they look at all your logs. I mean, there's the amount of paperwork we had to send, it's nail biting because they can shut you down in a heartbeat and there goes your income. So anyway, she goes, you have one violation. And I said, well, as far as I know, we don't have any. What's the violation? She said, well, you got a violation for a cracked windshield. And I said, I've never had a cracked windshield. She said, no, it was actually your business partner. I said, really? And I started thinking back and I said, David, have you ever had a cracked windshield? And he goes, no. I said, that freaking officer right there gave you a violation for a cracked windshield.
Oh my gosh.
His windshield.
Oh my gosh.
Which, hey, so you know crazy. What? If we've ever gotten a butt chewing, we probably deserved it. You know, it's just one of those things where not only is your life on the line, but everyone around you, their life is on the line as well. And you have every right to refuse a load if you can't do it right.
Right. So, like, before this, had you ever owned or started a company before?
Yeah, I've had a few. Now, I owned a construction company and I got really sick and I wasn't able to keep up. You know, they say the expression that we used were all the workers were fat and happy. and they just were going. I mean, they were flip flopping jobs. They were going to whoever's paying more, they'll leave you high and dry and just go.
Mm.
And that was in the housing boom last year, as a matter of fact. And when I got really sick, I was disabled from April, and I started November. April to November is when I was is the time frame there. And I just got really bad, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I was letting customers down, and I just said, you know what, I can't. I'm going to get sued. Not to mention the whole integrity aspect of it. If you can't do it, don't do it.
Mm-hmm. So that's you've had experience doing all this before you just started this, as far as running a company. Yeah.
And I've worked at startups before. I've actually started divisions for companies. I've been all the way up to director of business development of a $650 million a year company. So I've been up there. I've done it. I've seen it. No, have I ever made or sold a company that was that profitable? No, but as far as the ins and outs of business and what I needed to do to keep on top of everything, I had a pretty good handle on that.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious because, being an entrepreneur myself and having started different ventures and things, and, I know that the climate that we're in is one that makes a lot of people anxiety ridden and stressed out. And I think as entrepreneurs, there's a certain level of risk adverse attitude where it's kind of like, we don't, there's that attitude of, yeah, well, we know that there's things that are going to have to go into doing this, but it doesn't really bother us to go ahead and see if this fails, it's fine. There's that kind of, we don't, in my opinion, we don't feel the same stress. We kind of, it drives me at least to try to figure out how I can be more innovative, like, especially in the middle of all this. So I was kind of curious, as an entrepreneur yourself and somebody that started businesses, people that are not business owners or people that don't start businesses on a regular basis are kind of finding themselves in a weird type of, economic situation. But I feel like there's a lot of opportunities that people have right now to learn something new or figure out how to, use their skill set or learn a new skill set. So like, what would you say as somebody that's been through this with numerous companies? Like, what would you say that somebody right now could do in the midst of all this that could maybe give them a different way of looking at how all this is happening? Am I being clear on my question? Like,
let me take a stab at it. So, in my opinion, when it comes to starting a business, the hardest thing to do is pull the trigger. People have all kinds of ideas. I bet you anyone and everyone who's sitting here listening to this right now has some kind of idea. Maybe it's a new kind of load or something on a truck, all the way up to, well, I'm going to develop this new multi-billion-dollar software program. Who knows? Ambition, right? The difference between someone who is an entrepreneur and someone who is not is the ability to pull the trigger. And I've even had ideas in the past where I'm like, man, I had an idea that I was going to create these Amazon boxes, and I was going to make benches or flower pots. And essentially, a delivery driver comes up, puts the package in the box, and locks it. And it's decorative, right? They have those. And they started putting them out there after I had actually pitched the idea to my best friend, my business partner.
Wow.
And I was like, man, there's an opportunity gone. And that's happened a couple of times, right? But you get in there and you research and you research and you research until you can write your own freaking book. But the problem is you never pulled the daggum trigger.
Yeah.
So when are you going to pull the trigger?
Yep. That's what I mean. I think is when I say risk adverse, it's like you have to find a way to just do it, even though you know that it might not succeed the way that you want it to, or that you're not really sure how it's going to work out. But you have to be willing to take that step and to take that action, when you're in the midst of that. Continue. I'm sorry, I interrupted you, but that's really the point.
No. That shoot, when I first got into this right here, this trucking business, I had no idea the amount of paperwork that I was going to need to do. I had no idea what was required. I went out and registered for an LLC. That was my start. And then I kept asking questions of other drivers. Hey, what's the next step? And lo and behold, somebody would give you another step. And I just kept asking questions until I got to the point where I found a company that all they did was they made sure that you had all your ducks in a row. And so they made sure that I had all my paperwork. Now, they didn't do the best job in the world, as the auditor pointed out to me, but they got me pointed in the right direction. And, the scariest part of it is I was going through weigh stations, I'm on blogs, Facebook pages, and drivers would say, man, can you believe this guy got me for that? And I'm like, okay, I won't do that. And, and you just keep your ears open. But I was literally running out of the house without my pants on, trying to sew them up as I was running. It was crazy. And I am so surprised with a safer score of a 1 out of 100, being pulled into a weigh station one time. The officer says, how long have you been in business? And I said, about 3 months. And he said, you have a safer score of a 1. I said, yeah. And he said, usually by now you're in the 50s or 60s.
Wow.
And I just kind of stepped back and I went, okay, I guess we're doing all right. That was the first time I knew that I could relax a little bit, just the nerves anyway. But I mean, I guess the hardest part of this whole thing is knowing that your family relies on you just as much as the company relies on you. That's the scariest part, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. But one of the things, and I'm glad you made that point because what you're saying when that officer says you usually by this point have this much of a score, well, that's the difference between somebody going into this mentality as not a truck driver, but as a business owner and somebody that's being responsible in the way that he is finding out how to run this business. And so you go into it with a lot more knowledge because you seek it out. And whereas maybe just somebody doing this just to kind of get through or not wanting to do it long term or something like that, they might not spend all that time. And I think that that's a really good point that you made, because the more information and research that you can do to educate yourself or learn something new about what you're trying to accomplish is going to put you in a situation that is going to help you to sidestep some of those obstacles that other people might hit. And I think that we're seeing that a lot with the way that businesses are going through this particular situation is who are the people, like look at the business owners and the companies right now that are being very reactionary. And you'll see that the people that really can get themselves through this kind of stuff are going to be the ones like yourself that spend all the time really understanding and getting on, not just on researching, Googling, but getting on Facebook and hearing things from other people in the industry so that you can understand, like, how can I navigate this with the best possible outcome, and I think that that's a really good point. We're all kind of being pushed into this environment where we're having to learn new things and try new things. And, but the more that you can give yourself the openness to just be open to learning and being open to educating yourself, the better off you're going to be after all this is finished.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's really important. And if there's one message that I want to spread to people, it's that stop thinking about today and what you're seeing today and think about things 3 to 4 months from now, because it's going to get better. What can you do today that's going to make your life better in 3 to 4 months? Is it that you can learn something new that maybe could provide you a new skill set? Is it that maybe this is a time when you can completely pivot your entire career and go from construction to trucking because that's what maybe you wanted to do? So there's opportunities. And I think that I just really want people to take advantage of the opportunity, and not look at it so much of a scary fear thing, but like there's opportunities that we're being given right now.
You know what? If we ever stop learning as entrepreneurs, we just need to quit.
Yes.
And that means
yes.
being the success difference of the companies that I believe are running versus the ones that aren't tend to lean towards the management that listens. If they've got so much pride because they're making, $300,000 a year and they're in charge of a $600 million a year company or even $1 billion a year company, and they've stopped listening, then they're stuck in their old ways. They're not risk adverse because they're not listening.
Mm-hmm.
Listen and judge. What does it hurt? Keep your ears open.
Yeah.
Keep your mind open.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that a lot of people that wouldn't consider themselves entrepreneurs or think of themselves that way can still learn a lesson from the type of qualities that an entrepreneur usually possesses. One of those things is always educating yourself, always learning something new, and then keeping your ears and eyes open for opportunities that are presenting themselves. I think that, think about this. I just found out, Brackeen. I don't know if you know the Brackeens, but one of the daughters owns a chocolatiering factory. That's what they've been doing. And I just saw a post about how they're completely shifting their entire operation because they have the machinery already to start producing plastic face masks. That's a pivot.
Oh, wow.
And, and it's like,
a huge
wow,
one.
Look at that. Yeah. That's the kind, but we don't have to, in the middle of all this, you don't have to say, well, I can't make a face mask, so I can't help. There's a lot of things that you can do within your life that affects people around you. And one of those things is just figuring out how you can add more to your knowledge base to provide something else for someone else. And that all goes back to listening. And also taking off all the negativity of your Facebook. I've stopped following a lot of people this week because I can't take listening to it all the time.
Oh, I agree.
But that's really awesome. So are y'all based out of Grand Prairie? Where do you live usually?
We're in Euless.
Oh, Euless. Okay.
Yeah, so we're actually on the border of Fort Worth, Euless, and Arlington. And it's funny. My address is Fort Worth. I'm sorry, my address is Euless, but Fort Worth police show up. So it's we're right there, right on the line.
Yeah, that's an interesting area over there because you're right. It is kind of convoluted, where you're at. So, well, I'm just really glad that you gave us a little bit of insight into how all this works and just the complicated nature of this industry. I didn't realize it was. I knew that y'all had different restrictions and things that y'all had to follow, regulations that y'all had to follow. I just didn't realize it was that much that were so complicated.
Oh, yeah. And everyone has their hand open. Oh, hey, let me point this out to you, if you can believe this. So fuel tax, right? Everyone complains about the price of fuel, but all we see is gasoline, the price of gasoline going down. Well, what stays the same? Diesel. What's operating the economy? Diesel. Not only do we buy diesel, I bought just last week. I drove up to Wisconsin and ran around a little bit and came back. Just on my fuel card, not the other gas stations. There were a couple of gas stations I went to that my fuel card wouldn't cover. But just on my fuel card, I spent $550. Now, mind you, that's just at the fuel pump. I also have to belong to an organization called IFTA, International Fuel Tax Agreement. What that is if I go to Illinois, fuel tax is a leveling ground. It makes it. I think the intent is that we don't feel more incentivized to fill up in one state versus another. And so every quarter we have to claim fuel tax. So not only do we pay fuel tax at the pump, but then Uncle Sam has his hand out too. Okay, you paid them, now it's time to pay me. So every state we go into, we have to pay an additional tax every quarter for fuel. And fuel
Wow.
is
That is insane. So is that like if you're a CDL driver or if you're a business owner, who is the one responsible for being a part of that?
anyone who is qualified, or I guess I wouldn't say qualified, but anyone who rates carrying a load over 26,000 pounds.
Wow. And for context, like how big is 26,000 pounds? Like what would be something we would see?
Okay, if you see a 40-foot trailer with single wheels on the axle on the trailer, more than likely they are under 26,000 pounds. They've had that trailer derated for less than 14,000 pounds. As soon as you put dual tires on that trailer, it's rated for more weight. My dually is rated at 14,000 pounds and my trailer is 23,900 pounds. So I'm actually registered for 40,000 pounds. So
Wow.
as soon as I cross that peak of 26,000 pounds, boom, a whole new plethora of requirements and people with their hand out.
Wow, that is crazy.
It is.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I kind of understand like something like that. I mean, I get the point of it, but it's just yet another expense, and it's another way that all this becomes more expensive. That's what it all boils down to. It's just more
Yeah.
cost.
When I was telling you earlier that we were doing 6 or 7 grand a week and we're living paycheck to paycheck, just imagine what kind of expense that is.
Right. Well, because we haven't even talked about maintenance for any of those things, or making sure, like changing out the tires or anything like that,
I'll say this, $70,000 truck, bought it in September. I have 63,000 miles on it.
Wow.
And I already had to put $1,000 worth of tires just on the back end. I've had to change out all the tires on the trailer. I've got rust on the trailer. This truck in particular is known for a specific problem that I'm going to have to fix here pretty soon. I mean, every weekend you're driving all week, and on the weekend you're maintaining. That's the only way you're going to go without hurting somebody, staying on top of regulations, violations, pre-trip, always fine. Man, I was sleeping in a parking lot and somebody stole my daggum mud flaps off the trailer.
No.
Yeah. That one little thing was $100.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So do you see yourself staying in this industry for a long period of time, or what are you thinking?
I will be in this industry for a long time. However, I will not be driving for a long time. My goal is to develop a fleet. And then the next step would be that I will dispatch for that fleet. And then the next step is I will broker and dispatch for that fleet. And I'll just continue to grow from there.
Because you're already starting to see opportunities for you to be doing that. See, that's how an entrepreneur thinks. Because they're like, I'm in the middle of this, and what are things that I could be doing better than this other person does? Especially as someone that has actually done the job,
You remember the sacrifice in the military. I mean, you sacrifice everything. Always called up, always gone, always busy. I got an MBA not to do that anymore. And here I am doing it. Excuse me. Here I am doing it again. So eventually I won't be doing it. I'll be owning it, but I won't be driving. And being out here on the road gives me a different perspective, a different appreciation for who will work for me in the future.
Right.
They will be gold.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point too. It's like when then you become the person in charge, it also gives you an empathy for the people that you have working for you. And it kind of changes the way that you do business. And I know that it's hard what you're doing right now. And but it's going to give you such a great mindset to be a better boss and a better owner. And makes me feel a lot more comfortable to know that there's people like you that I'm sharing the road with that are responsible. I mean, I got to tell you, like that makes me feel a little bit better.
Hey, don't get that what is it? False sense of security. There's a lot of crazies.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. It also makes me question a little
Oh
bit.
my gosh. Oh, I've heard. Well, if you just go out there and Google like DOT stops or something like that, they'll show you some of the violations that they're seeing. Like this one guy was operating a semi on one brake. Trailer brake didn't work. One brake on the dang tractor worked. One brake.
That is terrifying.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean,
okay, so all you drivers out there that have ever cut short in front of a trucker before, I just want y'all to remember what he just said. That person might not have the brakes on their truck to be able to stop and not run into the back of you. So give them space. Just wow.
Oh, I cannot emphasize that enough. Just being in this one ton, you don't know how much weight I have on my trailer. Do you know what my truck was designed to stop for? My truck was designed to stop for not 40,000 pounds. So as soon as you get up to a truck in traffic that has 10 car lengths in front of them, and he's doing 25 miles an hour, everybody's doing 25 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden 6 cars just fly in there and take that space. They're not endangering the trucker's life. They're endangering their own, because I'm going to put my hood through their teeth.
Man, this has given me a little bit of things to think about. I mean, it's not like I drive aggressively around truck drivers anyways, but you don't think about that. You just don't think about the fact that it's like how we go through life. We just assume that everyone is around us is as safe as we are, or that has the same idea of safety that we do. But when you hear that, it just reminds us, that not everybody operates the same as we do in life. And so we just have to assume to do the best, to assume the best in people, but also remember that there could be situations where you get into where somebody else has not done what they're supposed to do. And now you've got one brake on a truck that, could crash in the back of you. And is it really worth going that much faster just to get in front of somebody,
It's not. Oh, believe me, it's not. It's a world of hurt. It's going to be I mean, a trucker does the best they can to control the space around them. If you've ever, there's an old school way of doing things around here, manners. And for example, if we're going to change lanes, say one of us is in the fast lane and we turn that right blinker on to get back over in the slow lane. We're always in the slow lane if we can be, but for the most part. I know a lot of them don't, but that's the old school manners, is we're always in the slow lane. Anyway, you put that right blinker on and you see a truck turn his headlights off and then turn them back on. That's an indicator that says, hey, coast is clear, you can come on over. That's old school manners. If people in this world had an ounce, well, I say that, I know a lot of people do, but I can't see. I can't see around the panels of my truck. And so I just assume that I've put my blinker on long enough. I've checked my blind spot mirrors. I'm looking around all before I change lanes, trying to give someone the opportunity to get out of the way if I'm going to start changing lanes. And people, as a matter of fact, before I started doing this, I had actually done that. And this lady hit her gas pedal instead of her brake, and I wound up spinning her car around. and I didn't even feel her. The only way that I knew that I had made contact with her was to see her come around the front of my truck.
Wow.
So yeah, people are playing Russian roulette in front of semis and commercial vehicles alike.
Well, what I hope that all this has done, and I try to look for the positive byproducts of the situation that we're in. And after people hearing our conversation today and then having experienced what it's like to not be able to have supplies, we have never experienced something like that before, where we don't have the things that we need the moment that we have them. Well, those have to get there somehow. And my hope is that people have a little bit more empathy for those drivers that are getting everybody the things that they need in this world. You know, the supply of our entire country depends on you guys. And like, that's very important. And I think that if anything, I hope that the lack of having those supplies right now and the way that that's all worked out has given people an appreciation for what you guys do. And after hearing you today, it's given me a much more appreciation for all the things that y'all have to deal with on a regular basis just to be able to do your jobs. And thank you for being a safe driver that's out there on the road with us. And
Well, Jenna, if I could say one last thing to your point, I served my country for 10 years in the Marine Corps, and it's my time again, and I'm just glad I could do it. And we'll run hard. We'll run hard.
Well, thank you for that too. I'm just so grateful. I'm so glad that you responded. I put out a little thing on Facebook today about I'm looking for some people to do some interviews, and you were right there. And I didn't even think to ask anybody that were truck drivers, or owned a business like that. So I'm glad you spoke up, because this is not a conversation I thought I'd have today, but I'm so glad that we got a chance to do it, because it's very enlightening. And
well, I appreciate the opportunity, and anytime that I can that I can show people what it's really like. It's not all roses out here. But anytime that I can tell people what it's really like, hey, look, I enjoy what I do. I really do. And I do appreciate the opportunity to do this. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today.
Well, I have one question if you have one more minute. What do you listen to mostly when you're driving?
Oh, man. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. I got into one called, it was called Undisclosed. And man, that particular podcast right there was about wrongful convictions and how someone was wrongfully convicted, but then gets all the way to the Supreme Court and gets turned down, even though it was approved in lower courts and, for retrial. And then I listened to Tupac versus Biggie. I listened to the documentary on that one. I have my own playlist, or I'll venture out a little bit, but it just depends on what the mood is. I listen to a lot of talk radio because I don't talk to anybody out here. You can probably tell with my long-witted self.
So you are a listener of you like to hear people talk. You're not really music so much. That's how I am too.
Yeah, no, I mean, if I'm at the gym, I've got my playlist, and if I'm with the family, we're listening to music. But when I'm in the truck, if you can really get engrossed in a story, it just makes the time pass. You just forget that you're driving. I mean, 11 hours, shoot, that takes some endurance.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think as a realtor, I drive around a lot, but not anywhere close to what you guys do. But there's one podcast I listened to, and it was, because there's a lot of fictionalized dramas that are kind of like old radio serials, that have a storyline. And one of them was about a trucker, and she picks up a load and doesn't know what's there. And it turns out to be this alien species that gets released. It's crazy. And I was like, this is so weird. But it was
that actually sounds pretty darn good. Oh man, there was a story that I picked up. There've been a lot of serial killer truck drivers. And the challenge with serial killer truck drivers is that you can kill someone in one state, take them to another state, and the original state, even though they have a missing persons claim out there, it's not a murder yet. but the other state has a murder, but neither one of them knows about the other.
Oh my gosh. That is terrifying. And then when I think you said the undisclosed thing, that would be something that just drove me crazy. Like because I love all that true crime drama. I love all that. But stuff like that, I don't know. It feels like it would give me a real sense of anxiety and frustration.
You never know who you're dealing with. You never. Oh, here's one last one. So I got pulled over for a level 1 and in Oklahoma, as a matter of fact. And I'm like, I like to look at myself as a realist. I may never need it, but I have a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I sleep in my truck.
Mm-hmm.
I have had the windows knocked on in the middle of the night, and, you know, either a homeless person asking for money or kids playing around, but you never know. And so I have, this police officer pulls me over, and I've got both hands on the steering wheel as he's coming up, and he goes, "You ready for a level 1?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "All right, let me see." And he names off the paperwork, and I said, "It is in my glove compartment. I am going to reach over with my right hand, and I will lift over the glove compartment and retrieve the documents." And he goes, "You got a gun in the car?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "Where is it?" And I said, "Well, my 380 is around my ankle and my 45 is around my waist." And he goes, "You have 2?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "What do you need 2 for?" And I said, "I sleep in my truck." He goes, "Anything else?" I said, "I have extra magazines in the glove compartment, 2 for the 45, 2 for the 380. And he goes, "You're ready, huh?" And I said, "I believe so." He goes, "Well, just make sure that they are accessible, but not until after I leave."
Oh my.
Coolest officer I've ever really, well, there've been a lot of really good ones, but he definitely was icing on the cake for sure.
I was gonna say, sounds like a really cool guy to be. Yeah, that's awesome.
Just down to earth, a realist. Yeah, no, he was good. And you thanked me for the safety, and he actually said, "You know what? Usually these things take over an hour. I can tell you take care of your equipment, and I really appreciate that." And we were done in like 25 minutes. You know, so he was just like, "I appreciate you letting me mark this one off the list and move on to the next."
Yes. Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But that's good to know that there's that kind of those kind of guys out there. But then there's also the ones that will give you a cracked windshield for a piece of styrofoam.
You know what? We laugh about it, and I'm like, "You deserve that."
Oh, that's funny. Well, Cleve, it was so nice to talk to you today. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jenna. I really appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon for sure.
All right. Be safe.
All right, I will. You too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.